Hi everyone, I'm Toby, I'm 35 and my liver is currently on vacation, which means I've got a guest liver. Yes, that is right, I am a liver transplant recipient. Welcome to my vlog. So what I'm going to talk about today is one of the issues that I've been dealing with since the transplant, and it's probably the one that's been irritating me the most, tremors. I don't know, let's see if you can see it. Yep. You can see how my hand is shaking, and actually in this video, and probably in a couple of the previous videos, you can even hear my voice is trembling a little bit, which is a very strange effect. And these tremors, I had a very mild tremor before the transplant. You didn't notice it in much of the way I presented, other than my hand would shake sometimes. I work in a school and occasionally the children will go, why is your hand shaking, sir? And just say, well, sometimes my hand does it. I get shaky hands. And then writing on the board, sometimes if I was trying to draw a straight line, it would come up more of a squiggle. So I wanted to try to draw the number 1, and one of the children said, why is there an S on the board? So, yeah. But it wasn't too bad. It didn't really affect me day to day, other than a bit of handwriting, particularly on whiteboards. But yeah, after the transplant, though, it got significantly worse. And the reason for this is suspected to be due to the anti-rejection medication. In particular, Adaport tacrolimus is one of the top culprits for causing worsening tremor symptoms. Now, hopefully, as time goes on and my tacrolimus dosage is decreased, that tremor may go away. But at the moment, it's pretty severe. So I'm going to show you a video in a minute of me trying to eat some dinner, and you will see that it's quite tricky. I'm struggling to actually aim my fork at what I want to eat, and eating peas is an absolute disaster. You see me try to adapt, so to find a different way to complete my task using a different method. That fails, and then at the end you can see I decided that some food just is not worth the effort. Spare the chip. So as you can see, really struggled with that one, and it clearly affects me day to day. I can't even pour a glass of water without struggling. So this is a simple task. I just want to pour myself a glass of water. One of the things I decided to do is to get a bit of a measure of this. Now, unfortunately, I didn't measure this when my shake was at its worst. What I thought is if I draw a straight line, a couple of straight lines on a piece of paper, and then using a different colour, I try to draw over them manually by hand, and we'll see how much the shake shows. Now, I did this yesterday, I think it was, or this morning, and you can see I clearly cannot draw. This is me really trying to draw a straight line over the lines I've already drawn. I clearly cannot do it. If I'd have done this maybe 2 days ago, it would have been worse, but I don't know if that's because it's slowly starting to get better already, or if it was just a random fluctuation up and down, because it does tend to fluctuate through the day. So here you can see the picture representing my attempts to draw over a straight line. As you can see, I'm not exactly going to be a professional artist anytime soon, but that's not exactly changed from before. However, this does really affect me day to day. It affects me in my practical tasks, okay, so I can manage that. I can't eat soup because it flies everywhere. Eating a lot of foods is quite tricky because the accuracy needed to spear with a fork. Holding things can be tricky and messy. All sorts of things day to day that you take for granted suddenly become a bit of a challenge. Now I can deal with that, I can adapt. I'm very good at that kind of thing. What does bother me is that it affects the way I present myself. So it's not just affecting what I do, it's affecting who I am. And it's affecting the way that I speak, it's affecting the way that I look, and overall it's undermining any confidence I have in presenting myself. So no matter how confident I may feel, I come across as shaky, unstable. I've even developed at some points a bit of a stutter because I was shaking so much I couldn't even get the words out properly. Now, I'm really hoping this gets fixed. I'm going to see what happens if I just continue as I am, just continue with my medication plan as it is, and taper off some of the meds, and then hopefully things will get better, they'll be bearable and manageable. If not, I will have to look at changing my medication. So I'm currently on one called Adaport, which is the best for the job. There's another one called cyclosporin, which is less likely to cause a tremor effect, but is also a less effective anti-rejection drug. Now, if I have to switch to that, I don't want to do that until I am going back to work, because I will keep on the Adaport as much as possible for as long as possible to increase, particularly in this first 3 months, which is a critical time, to increase the chances of me accepting the liver properly and no rejection issues, rather than switching early and increasing that risk. The reason being, during this time I can deal with these symptoms, even the personality undermining symptoms, I can deal with that. But when I go back to work, obviously I'm going to need to be able to do things like write on a whiteboard and just generally hold things. So at that point, after I've tapered off the Adaport, if it's still affecting me the same way, then I will look at possibly changing my medication. So the one important thing to remember is that if you're going through something like this, it's natural, it's normal. It's one of those things that you get with liver transplant. Don't worry about it. There are different ways that it can be dealt with. It should, in most situations, clear up of its own. For some people it clears up as you take away the prednisone, and for other people it clears up as you taper down on your tacrolimus. Now, one of the things that might set a lot of you at ease is a study I found from 2004 showed that if you have a slight tremor before your operation, so this is before you go in for your transplant, if you hold your hand out like this and you see a slight shake, or if you notice at the extent of your reach, and if you're trying to write or do things and you shake a little bit, then you're more likely to develop a more severe tremor afterwards. If you don't have a tremor at all before, you are almost guaranteed not to have a tremor afterwards. So it seems to, the transplant itself and the ensuing medication seems to exacerbate an existing tremor rather than cause a new one. I'd be interested to see a bit more detail on that. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of research in this area, but I'd be interested to see a bit more detail on that, and I'm wondering if that is actually related to the people who are taking prednisone at the time when they were looked at, because there are a lot of people who've been saying that when they come off prednisone, the tremors stop. I know I'm on prednisone and I have been for years and years and years, so maybe if I was ever to stop prednisone, that would stop it completely, or if I stop the tacrolimus, that might weaken it. I don't know yet. Don't quote me on that. This is just supposition, and I'm not a qualified professional. I'm just some guy who's had a liver transplant who's trying to tell you guys what it's like to have a liver transplant. This is my patient story, and I'm hoping that it will inform some of you and those who might be coming up for a transplant or have had a transplant. I hope it's something you can relate to. I've had some lovely comments from people already. People have sent through some messages saying thank you very much for posting your vlog. It's made me realise that I'm not the only person with these issues. I'm not the only person who's experienced this, and it's really comforting to see other people have dealt with this as well. Do remember that there are other support groups available. There might be support through your hospital. There's certainly support groups on Facebook. Just search for transplant, liver transplant, search for your particular cause. So for me it was autoimmune hepatitis, and you should find a number of groups of people where you can chat and share stories and compare your different experiences. Anyway, that's it for now. I will see you next time. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Bye bye.